It was just another sunny afternoon in the park when an 11-year-old black boy named Malik pulled out a sketchpad and began drawing birds near the fountain. He wasn't loud, didn't bother anyone, just a quiet kid with big dreams and a pencil in hand. But a nearby white woman, who claimed he looked suspicious, called the police. Her tone was sharp, her words laced with assumptions, and soon, 2 officers pulled up with flashing lights. Malik, confused and scared, had no idea what he'd done wrong. He kept saying, "I was just drawing, ma'am," but that didn't seem to matter. The crowd began to form, phones came out, and people started asking questions, but nothing prepared anyone for what happened next. A sleek black SUV pulled up. The door opened, and out stepped a tall woman in a sharp navy suit. She didn't just walk with confidence, she carried the authority of someone used to standing in rooms where decisions are made. She was Malik's mother. She was also the state's governor. The shift in energy was instant. The woman who had called the police went pale. The officers straightened up, and as Malik ran to his mom, holding back tears, the silence around them grew heavier. What happened next left everyone stunned and sparked a conversation that spread far beyond that park. But before the truth unraveled and roles reversed, tension hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. What would the governor say? And what would she do next? Governor Angela Brooks didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm gaze alone made the officers pause mid-sentence. She gently knelt beside Malik, brushing the dirt off his knees, and whispering something only he could hear. He nodded slowly, still holding his sketchpad tight. Standing up, she looked straight at the woman who had made the call. "Is this the boy you felt threatened by?" she asked, her tone even but firm. The woman stammered, suddenly unsure of her words. People in the crowd began murmuring. Phones kept recording. What most didn't know was that Angela had grown up in that same neighborhood. She'd walked those same sidewalks as a kid, often ignored or misunderstood. That memory stayed with her as she worked her way through law, school, then the state senate, and finally into the governor's office. But no amount of titles could shield her son from the assumptions people still made based on his skin color. The officers tried to explain they were just responding to a call, but their eyes betrayed discomfort. They didn't know who they were speaking to at first. Now that they did, every word seemed like a misstep. The woman who called them kept repeating, "I didn't know," but the words felt hollow. Angela said nothing back. She just kept her hand on Malik's shoulder. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Was this about a drawing or something deeper? And in that moment, everyone was waiting to see what Angela would do next. As more people gathered, a quiet hush spread across the park. Some recognized Governor Angela Brooks instantly. Others were just beginning to piece it all together, whispering to one another, glancing between Malik, the officers, and the woman who'd made the call. One man near the fountain muttered, "This ain't right," while a teenager beside him started laughing. The story was already spreading. Malik clung to his sketchpad like it was a shield. His drawings, soft pencil sketches of birds and trees, fluttered slightly in the breeze. One of the officers glanced at the pages, realizing the suspicious object was nothing more than a child's artwork. But instead of apologizing, he stayed quiet, unsure how to walk back a mistake made in front of cameras and a governor. Angela kept her focus. But inside, memories stirred of the times she'd been questioned, followed, doubted, for no reason beyond her appearance. She had fought so hard to rise, thinking it might protect her family. But here it was again. Different day, same story. Meanwhile, the woman who made the call, a local PTA chair named Linda, began to justify herself to the growing crowd. "I just thought something was off. I mean, how was I supposed to know who he was?" Her words rang out like echoes that no one was asking for, from behind a nearby tree. A local journalist named Ray had started filming quietly. He recognized the tension, the deeper story forming one, not just about a park incident, but about perception, power, and the weight of assumptions. The air was tight with silence, the kind that presses against your chest. Cameras were pointed in every direction, recording every breath, every glance. Governor Angela Brooks finally took a step forward, her heels clicking softly on the pavement, but each step felt louder than the last. She looked at the officers, then turned her gaze toward Linda. "You saw a black boy sitting alone with a notebook, and you called the police," she said slowly, her voice steady but loaded. "Do you know how dangerous that can be for him?" Linda opened her mouth, but no words came. Around her, the crowd was no longer just watching, they were reacting. Some nodded, others whispered, their expressions a mix of shock and quiet. Anger. A mother with 2 small kids pulled them closer, eyes on Malik, as if suddenly seeing her own children in him. Malik stood still, now halfway behind his mother, his fingers curled tightly around the edge of his sketchpad. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, but his wide eyes took in everything. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a lesson, one he never asked for. One of the officers, clearly younger and visibly nervous, shifted on his feet and finally asked, "Governor Brooks, is there anything we can do?" His question hung in the air, fragile and unsure. Before she could answer, another black SUV pulled up. A security aide rushed out and whispered something into Angela's ear. Her eyes narrowed. Something else was unfolding behind the scenes. And now, Everything was about to shift. Angela's expression shifted the moment her aide finished, whispering. She looked at Malik for a beat longer, then turned back to the officers with a firmer tone. I need you both to stay right here. Do not leave this park. Her voice.com before now carried the weight of command. Something deeper was unraveling. The crowd sensed it too. Phones were raised higher, and murmurs spread like ripples. Angela stepped aside to make a discreet call, her back to the cameras, but her body language said everything something bigger had just dropped. Malik watched her, confused but trusting. Moments later, the second twist revealed itself. Angela returned and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. There was another call to 911, she said. But it wasn't about Malik. It was about a suspicious adult seen following a child with a phone in this very park, 15 minutes before Linda's call. The officers looked at each other. That report had never reached them. Ray, the journalist, near the tree, blinked hard. He checked his phone and pulled up the emergency scanner app. Sure enough, there it was, a flagged call, logged but never dispatched. The tension exploded. Was the system filtering reports? Was Linda's call pushed forward while another possibly more serious was delayed or ignored? The deeper question settled over the crowd like a shadow. Was this just one woman's assumption, or something broken in the response chain itself? And as Angela turned her gaze toward the patrol car, the park fell into stunned silence. Something was about to come to light. Governor Angela Brooks stepped forward, her voice steady as ever, but now there was a fire behind her words. This isn't just about my son. It's about how we choose who to protect and who to question. 2 calls were made. One was ignored, one was overreacted to. Both were about children, but only one ended in flashing lights. The crowd was silent. No shouting, no arguing, just stillness. Like everyone was collectively holding their breath. Then, the unexpected twist. Angela turned toward Linda. You weren't the first to report my son today, she said, holding up her phone. Security footage from nearby stores shows you following Malik for almost 10 minutes before you called. The police? Gasps broke out. Linda stepped back, her mouth open, but no words came. You didn't feel threatened, Angela continued. You were curious, and you made a choice that could have changed his life forever. The officers looked rattled. One of them quietly asked if he was under internal review. Angela nodded. There will be a full investigation, not just into this incident, but the ignored 911 call and how reports are being prioritized. Malik finally spoke. Can we go home now? His voice was soft, but it cut through everything. Angela wrapped her arm around him and gave the nod. They walked toward the SUV, the cameras still rolling, but her focus now only on her son. But just as the door shut, Ray, the journalist, glanced at his phone. A message had come in. Anonymous. Just 5 words. Asterisk. This wasn't an accident. Asterisk. Ass. The SUV pulled away. Malik leaned his head on his mother's shoulder. She didn't say much, just held his hand tightly, knowing this wouldn't be the last time they'd face something like this. But today had drawn a line in the sand. Back at the park, people began to slowly disperse. Quieter now, thoughtful. Some had come for curiosity, others had stayed for justice. Either way, something had shifted. Ray stood under the tree, reading that anonymous message again. This wasn't an accident. He didn't know who sent it, but it was enough to spark a new investigation. He started digging, and what he uncovered in the following weeks exposed gaps in how emergency calls were filtered, patterns that showed a bias in how certain neighborhoods and faces were treated. The officers involved were placed on administrative leave. Linda, after weeks of backlash and reflection, resigned from the PTA and issued a public apology. Not everyone accepted it, but it marked